Okay, hello and welcome to the August 5th, 2013 School Committee Regular Session meeting at 7 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. The meeting is being both audio and videotaped this evening, both by the school department and the LCAT. I'd like to ask everyone to please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And our roll call to my left, please.
Hi, Elizabeth Marcin Boucher.
Rich Fitzgerald.
Deirdre Mayu.
Gregory Thompson.
Stephen Smith, Superintendent of Schools.
Bill Fonseca.
Terry Oljars, Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Kathy Saloy, Recording Secretary.
Thank you all. We have some minutes to approve. Do I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve the regular session minutes of our meeting on June 17th, 2013.
Motion made.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. June 17th, executive.
Move to approve the June 17th, 2013 executive session minutes.
Motion made.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, no. Motion again carries 5-0. Next set of minutes.
Motion to approve the July 8th, 2013 executive session minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any
And-
discussion?
Just want to make the one comment to the typo at the bottom, that the last part with the committee leaving executive session, it shows that Gregory Thompson was there, but he was not, so just to continue with it.
Oh.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayu, and also thank you, Mrs. Mayo, for chairing that meeting in my absence.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and I will be abstaining as well, thank you. That's 4 ayes and 1 abstention, thank you, because I wasn't there. Okay, moving right along, committee and subcommittee communications. Mrs. Marzian Boucher.
I actually don't have anything today.
Okay, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Yeah, just, I know we last one on June 17th, but I wanted to give our all scholastic achievers some recognition back in the spring. We had 25 all scholastic, 6 in baseball, 5 in softball, 4 in girls track, 8 in boys lacrosse, and 2 in boys volleyball. But even more gratifying is we had 4 students make the Republican all-academic sports teams, and they only take 30 students. We had 4 in Western Mass, and that was congratulations to Dan Besser, Madison Grandy, Tulsi Malley, and Nicholas O'Brien for being all Republican sports team. Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Great, thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald. Mrs. Mayu.
I do not have anything.
Mr. Fonseca.
No, I'll pass, I have nothing.
And the only meeting that I've had since is the facility study, but we actually have that later in our agenda, so we will have an update for that for you all then. So, moving right along, we have an event coming up August 6th. Mr. Smith.
Just a reminder that tomorrow night, August 6th, is our National Night Out, sponsored by our police department, and it is a national evening that encourages communities to come out and have community building events. I think it's been well attended in the years that I've been here. It begins around 5 o'clock, and I believe it's wrapping up somewhere around 8:30. You usually have presentations by the state police on occasion, and I think we do have the possibility of having a state police chopper with us later on in the evening, as well as the presentation by the state police canine unit.
And please come by the Unico booth. I'll be serving sausage and peppers as you raise money for the high school scholarship.
Now you talk. Very good. Very good. Thank you for that. Moving right along, our policy section J. This is a second reading.
Yes. In this section of J, you have policies going from policy JJI, which deals with athletics and coaching, all the way to JLCCA, which deals with different medical protocols used in our schools. And the first reading was on June 17th.
And I actually had 2 questions on these. JKAA, physical restraint of students. The first paragraph of the second page of the policy, only school personnel who have received training pursuant to 603 shall administer physical restraint on students. Now, my question is, I believe later on it talks about any employee having the ability to restrain if there's threat of
there's an
injury. So
Right.
what I'm concerned about is, does that first paragraph contradict the fact that anyone, even without the training, can restrain if they feel there's a
Basically, the law reads that it's our professional responsibility if students are in harm's way
Right.
to do something about it. So that would be more, at least the way I read it, if you have a situation where two students are getting into a physical altercation, all staff needs to do something to
Right.
intervene. When they specifically in paragraph 1 talk about restraint, they're talking about restraint where you're keeping a student from harming himself, herself,
Okay.
or others. And there is very specific training around that.
Right.
And each school has personnel who are trained. So if we have to use restraints in a situation where, I mean, there are situations throughout not only our school system, but other school systems where restraints are used. What it is a very specific training so that you're keeping a student safe while also keeping employees safe and yourself, if you're the one administering the restraint, safe. And there's a set protocol training that goes with that.
So that's more specific to anticipated, specific student restraint
Right.
for
Right.
individual needs versus an
Spontaneous
eminent or threat.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
that's clear in the policy, I guess, is my question? Okay,
And it gets reviewed each year with each building staff.
okay,
Because the big piece here is that you do not want to, you want to use physical restraint as a last resort.
right.
So you do everything possible to de-escalate and reduce emotions. And that's the training we concentrate on, not only with all staff, but then become very specific with people who are going through what becomes a 3-day course, if you will.
Okay.
How many people, if I may ask, how many teachers or employees within each school generally do we have that have this training?
It varies from school to school, but if you take, say, the high school, you often will have a few teachers, possibly your assistant principals, maybe one of the adjustment counselor, I believe, has been trained.
Okay.
And take an elementary school, you may have some special education staff who are trained. You also may have one of the counselors trained. And then the administrators, if they choose to be trained, can also be trained.
Okay, now, a pair that might be working with a child who
Paras
might,
as well.
they
Good
they
point.
generally would have the training for that, for a specific student, okay.
Okay, thank you for that. The other question I had, excuse me, was in the one that addressed physical examinations. for-
Last one, the very last one.
That's the one I had too, right here. Second paragraph.
Yes.
The way it's written.
So, yes, the question is, second paragraph, thank you, Mrs. Mayhew. The physical examination may be administered by the school physician, very rare if at all, or by private physician. Based on the commas, I guess, is
Yeah,
the
it's very
problem.
confusing, I agree.
Because I guess so my question is it rare that the school physician does the physical
Yes.
examination?
Yeah.
Practice actually
Right.
has, it's almost become non-existent.
Right.
Okay, so do we need to move some commas or something? How
Yeah, the
would
school
that-
physician still has the final responsibility for determining the student's eligibility?
The school physician can help support our nursing staff to review physicals if there are questions or.
Oh, okay.
That's where the school physician comes in.
Right, but I had that same concern regarding that second paragraph and that sentence.
And we could actually revise that and take it out.
The other thing, didn't the MIAA, although I hate to have our policies be ruled by them, but didn't they change something with the times and
They
dates?
did, it's 13 months now.
13 months.
It's 13 months, okay. All right, so that shouldn't affect this at all.
So I guess the very rare maybe should be moved to the
Right.
beginning of the paragraph to say very, rarely.
Although very rare.
Right.
Okay.
It just, because I was unclear on
Me too.
what's rare. Is it rare for the private physician or
Right.
the school
Right.
physician? Based on that, so maybe we can,
Or maybe switch around, say the physical examination may be, should be administered by the private physician at the expense of the student's parents, and then very rarely, if at all, by the private physician. I don't know.
What if we
If you
say
wanted
all
to-
Get that,
students?
Well, I don't
That
know,
was
Terry.
Doesn't the school nurse do some of the positions?
We used to have a nurse practitioner. who
Yeah,
did
not
that.
anymore.
No, okay.
Yeah.
think that works.
That's why, and we discussed this as a policy subcommittee. I mean, this practice, as I said, has almost become non-existent.
What was Deidre's sentence again?
No, it was actually just saying that the physical examination is administered by the, by the private physician, or at the expense of the student's parents, or.
and rarely by
And rarely.
the
And
school
rarely by the
physician. Do we want to reword that and bring it back, perhaps?
Sure.
I guess we should maybe look to do that.
Yep.
Please. Any other questions on those policies? So,
You want to make a motion to
Yeah.
accept all but that one?
yep.
I can bring that one back.
Make a motion that we accept section JJI through JLC.
Excluding.
I would go all the way through,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Excluding.
and then exclude,
Yeah.
yep.
I make a motion that we accept policies JLI through JLCCA-E-2,
JJI.
excluding JLCAA.
Right there. Yeah, that's right.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you for that. Okay, next on the agenda, we have school committee self-evaluation. Wondering if folks had a chance to look this over, and if folks had thoughts on how we might want to proceed with this.
Well, has this been done in the past?
We haven't done
Yeah.
necessarily a self-evaluation. Now, we can look to use this specific form and see how it works and perhaps tweak it in future. My thought was it would probably be prudent to do it prior to town election, maybe a month before town election. That way, we're all as seasoned as we can be, and that way we allow for changing of any members
right.
because of an election. I've read through it and certainly am comfortable with the form as it is, and we could run through it 1 year and see what it does for us,
Right.
and then make any changes. I'm also open to any discussion on that as well.
I like the idea of doing it later in the year. Of course, it gives you time to think about it, especially when you're new, because you really don't.
Right.
Right, you
Right.
have nothing
Yeah.
to comment on it.
So sometime in late February, March,
Yeah.
perhaps.
I would
Yeah.
do it, maybe after we get through, like, approving the budget and we get through, like, the heavy stuff. March is usually kind of a slow month. Could probably do it in March. First meeting in March, because then we're still a month out from town election.
Right,
Okay.
If,
right.
depending on what happens.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how about we
And-
leave it open to?
Yeah, and I like the form, like you
Yeah,
said, as it is.
I can live
I
with the
think it
form.
has a lot of detail. It really points
Right.
out a lot that we
Yeah.
do.
Let's see what the net results are after we do it, and then we can tweak it from there.
Right.
Okay, so perhaps we could entertain a motion to use the school committee self-evaluation form presented this evening and look to complete the process sometime in March.
So moved.
There we go.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. That carries 5-0 as well. Okay. Next up, we have a request for professional development half-days from the high school. Mr. Smith.
Yes. In your package, you have a request similar to last year's request. It would be specific half-days just for the high school. for them to use those half-days to complete their accreditation self-study for the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. After they finish this self-study, next year we actually get a visiting team here who reviews not only their self-study, but reviews for roughly 4 days our school in action, and has meetings not only with the school committee, but the different groups from the community, teachers, students, and so forth. It's a pretty intensive process.
And the dates that are requested are Friday, October 11th,
Right.
and Friday, February 14th. Any other questions or discussion? I would entertain a motion to that specific request.
I'll move that we approve the request for professional development days for the high school only, for the half-days, Friday, October 11th, 2013, and Friday, February 14th, 2014, for the NEASC accreditation self-study.
Very good, motion made.
I'll second
And
it.
seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion for that carries 5-0.
They have, just really quick, that ends this year, right?
Their self-study ends this year, and
Okay.
then next year they get visited.
Okay, thank you.
Up next, we have, as discussed in prior executive session, we have a memorandum of understanding with the ELEA. Everyone has that information in front of them. I would entertain a motion to that effect as well.
Did we have to state it in any way?
I will entertain a motion that we accept the memorandum of understanding with ELEA effective August 5th of 2013.
Pending legal
Pending
counsel.
legal.
Right,
Thank you
wasn't
for
that
that,
what
Ms.
it was?
Fonseca.
Okay.
Pending legal counsel. Thank you for that reminder.
So moved.
Motion made
I'll second.
and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. More policies, huh?
Hey, we keep them coming.
Actually, this will finish J for you.
Yes,
Well,
it
this is
will.
the first reading, but
Okay.
this is the last section of J you'll have to entertain. So in your packets,
Please.
you have the final group of policies for Section J, which takes you from policy JLCD, which is the policy for the administration of medications, through JRD, which is concerning student photographs. If you remember, as we began J is not only the largest section of our policy manual, it deals with students, which would make sense as to why it's the largest. As you go through, in this section, there weren't actually a ton of changes or revisions. You have, such as JLCD, we are keeping the East Long, or the recommendation is to keep the East Long Meadow version instead of going to the MASC version. And I think one of the larger changes, although it's not incredible impact, the wellness policy, the recommendation was for this policy is to put it in Section A, and so recode it as ADF, as opposed to, I think it was
CG.
CG, thank you. That seems to be what the MASC is finding, is that most wellness policies are in Section A. So, it's the same wellness policy that was passed last year and approved by the school committee.
Yeah, this section was tame compared to other sections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this will be a first reading. We'll have that on the agenda again our next meeting.
Sure.
Any further discussion on that? Okay. And then finally, we have an update on our school facilities study. We met with our architectural partners on the SMMA, thank you, and have started to develop a master plan in terms of how we might move forward. You know, specifically, obviously, we're looking at all 5 buildings. They've basically completed their analysis of the 5 buildings. We've have information on every single classroom and hallway of all 5 buildings. And we're going to look to set up several meetings coming up. Those would include meetings with the anyone, any town resident interested in coming, giving input, having some discussion. We would have SMMA there as well to answer any questions and take any input. We are also looking to have set up a meeting with the Board of Selectmen, Appropriations, Capital Planning, perhaps the Board of Public Works, to get their perspective and also hand out some information that's been taken in to this point to them. And then the other meeting would be with the leadership team as well, to kind of debrief them as to how far the master plan development has come, and again, get their input on things that may arise. Just in general, the thought, and this is completely up to how we as a committee decide to go forward and the community as a whole decide to go forward. We may look to talk about 2 phases. One would be specifically for this building, the high school, what we might do going forward to address some of the things that the study has found, and then perhaps phased, and also some capital investments on the other 4 buildings at phase 1, and then phase 2 years down the road could address some other issues that have reared their head, certainly things we already know about in the near but further out future. So I know that's very vague, but we're still at the input stage, so I just wanted to get the whole committee up to date as to where we are. Certainly a lot of information coming up. We had the last meeting was 3 hours long. And that was just to gather information and kind of develop some timeframes on how we want to do that. Those 3 meetings, we're looking to have all those September, October timeframe, if we can get those all scheduled with folks.
And those are all public too, that,
The public forum would be
Right.
public, yes. So the one specific one, we'd want to have at least one public forum, and there'll be multiple ones, as we go through the process, whatever we decide collectively to do with all the buildings. So there's certainly lots of time, and now we're just starting to get in those phases where we've gathered the analysis of all the buildings, and now we can start to develop that master plan, which will take us through the next good amount of time.
Easily 10, 12 years.
Should-
Yeah.
So that's the time to ask questions, and right now is not the time, we're still
Yeah.
in the formative stages.
Right.
exactly.
Right, exactly.
Give you an idea, I mean, it truly has,
No,
as
sorry, I
Mr.
get it.
Thompson has said, has evolved from a facility study where you're just concentrating on, okay, what's going on in the bricks and mortar, if you will, to a master plan. Because as you know, and I don't know if the community at large knows, although we did have a number of representatives at our visioning workshop, we had a visioning workshop component as to where education's going, not only nationally, but in the East Long Meadow Public Schools over the next few years. We also have, in this plan, projected enrollment over the next 10 years. And so all of that's coming together, hopefully, to put together a master plan. Where do the East Long Meadow Public Schools see themselves over the next 10, 12 years? So it's really becoming that. And a lot of it is getting all that information together, and in terms of the buildings themselves, comparing to what the Mass School Building Authority says, here are some of the recommendations that we would expect in classrooms for the 21st century learning. And so you have that piece, which is incredible, as Mr. Thompson said, that's an incredibly, almost overwhelming amount of information, because they've taken every single classroom in every area in every building and compared it against MSBA recommendations. And then from that, they're starting to pull all this other information into phase 1 and phase 2, and those 2 phases can change based on these different meetings, based on what the school committee feels. How would phase 1 sort of populate capital planning over the next 5, 10 years? And what does phase 2 then look like as we get out a certain distance? Along with that, they'll give us, and have given us, pretty clear guidelines as to how we get into the Mass School Mass School Building Authority pipeline, if you
Right.
will. And that's a very prescribed process and takes a good amount of time. And it starts with a statement of interest. When the window opens for a statement of interest to be submitted, and then you wait close to 9 months before you hear anything on that statement of interest. So it's, all of that actually was described to us over 2 roughly 3-hour meetings. And to say that it's an incredible amount of information probably is doing it an injustice. So what we're trying to do is get it to a point where we can present and not overwhelm.
Going back to the Mass Building Association, I know that normally they do schools, they only do schools, they do whole schools and that's it, renovations or whatnot. But this past year, they did, they got funding to do just additions specifically science, math related. Now, are they aware, I'm sure they're aware, but, you know, ask about these things as we go, because they've never done that before, where it's just, it's usually it's a complete redo, it's an all or none, but this was the first time they had done it. They're putting a $32 million addition onto Central, just science wing.
Right.
Because of that, and, you know, ask them about these things as we go,
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
that, because maybe we can't get the whole thing, but maybe we can get a
It's all,
section.
yeah, it's all based on your statement of interest. And so
Okay.
that's going to be the key. Their guidance in helping us submit that first statement of interest is going to be paramount.
Okay.
You know, and that's where everybody, these meetings that Mr. Thompson just spoke about, so we have an idea, okay, this is what the school committee, this is what the community feels we should do in phase 1. Okay, that guides how we put together that statement of interest, and now hopefully we're off and running with step 1 of phase 1.
Okay, and did they talk about what, I know 5 years up the line or 2 years up the line, it's gonna be different, but did they discuss reimbursement percentages
It did,
at all?
and that's something that we can start to look at based on, we can go to MSBA website and start to look at that for our community, what would reimbursement be right now? And you're right, it does change over time. And so getting into the pipeline is very important, and then knowing whether you've been accepted.
Right.
And you can change your statement of interest, especially if you have not been accepted. I think the window for submitting was January to April, and then you may not hear from them until October of that year, and their decisions can be spread out from October to December.
Right.
So, I mean, you're talking almost a full year before you could know whether your statement of interest has been accepted, just to be in their pipeline.
And then you wait.
Right.
Okay.
But there are very prescribed steps that the community has to do, and that's what we
Okay.
want to start talking about.
Okay.
Hypothetically, would we be ready to submit a statement of interest next year? Is
In
that a-
January of 2014, that's what we're hoping.
Is that doable at this point?
We'll know better as we get through these
Okay.
September and October
Okay.
meetings, but that's what we started to discuss. What we need is now that increased feedback from the committee, from the leadership team, from
Okay.
the meeting with the select board, appropriations and capital, public forums and so forth.
All right. Because I'm aware of the process, but if we're ready to hit it next January,
Right.
just to
Because
get.
otherwise you wait another year.
Yeah, that's what
Exactly.
I'm concerned about.
Right, yeah, no, and we would need, probably, what they said is you want to be very thorough and prepared and use your time. You know, don't necessarily submit in late April if the window closes in late April, but use January and February to make
Right.
sure that you're writing and revising
Right.
and you're putting
Yeah.
together a statement of interest that hopefully gets the attention of the MSBA review board and get you in their queue.
Still a work in progress.
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
But I think this,
Much work to come.
this database is going to be pretty incredible.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, and with that, we have arrived at the end of our August 5th meeting, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like a motion to adjourn.
Motion made
Second.
and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.